Imagine a queen so cruel, so intelligent, that she turned her own death into an eternal trap. A woman whose name was erased from official records, yet never forgotten by those who dared to study her legacy. They say she built an entire hall for one single purpose, to kill, that she lured her enemies with promises of peace, and drowned them alive, one by one, in the dark waters of the Nile. But the most disturbing part isn't the revenge. It's what came after. Because everyone who tried to rewrite her story, everyone who searched for her tomb, everyone who spoke her name carelessly, paid a price. Who was Queen Nitocris, really? A betrayed ruler seeking justice? Or the origin of one of the earliest curses ever recorded in human history? And what if ancient Egypt erased her name not out of shame, but out of fear? Ancient Egypt is known for its colossal pyramids, immortal gods, and divine pharaohs. But behind the gold, the statues, and the perfectly aligned hieroglyphs, there was another Egypt. An Egypt of conspiracies, of palace betrayals, of silent deaths in the shadows of temples. It is in this hidden Egypt that the name Nitocris emerges. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, she ruled during the 6th dynasty, around 2200 BCE, a time marked by political instability, famine, and the collapse of central power. Nitocris does not appear prominently in traditional Egyptian king lists. Her name surfaces fragmented, distorted, almost as if it were deliberately concealed. To some modern scholars, she may have been a translation error. To others, a mythological figure created centuries later. But there's a problem. Herodotus wasn't the only one to mention her. Manetho, an Egyptian priest and official chronicler, also refers to a queen of unmatched beauty and legendary cruelty. A woman described as more beautiful than all previous queens, and far more vengeful. And this is where the story stops being just history. According to ancient accounts, Nitocris ascended to the throne after the murder of her brother, the rightful pharaoh. A crime committed not by foreign enemies, but by members of his own court. Generals, priests, ambitious nobles. They believed a woman on the throne would be weak, manipulable, easy to control. They were wrong. Nitocris ruled in silence for a time, watching, writing down names, waiting. There were no public executions, no immediate display of rage. Instead, she announced a grand banquet, an event of national reconciliation. She claimed she wished to honor her brother's memory, restore order, and forgive those who had made mistakes. The conspirators accepted, and that acceptance sealed their fate. The banquet was held in a newly built underground hall on the banks of the Nile, a masterpiece of Egyptian engineering, hidden channels, secret passages, doors that closed without a sound. As wine was poured and the guests took their seats, Nitocris watched from her throne, dressed in white linen and gold. When everyone was gathered, she gave a single signal. The floodgates were opened. Water from the Nile began to pour into the hall. Slowly at first, then uncontrollably, the men tried to escape. The doors would not open. They screamed. They begged. They pounded against the stone walls. Herodotus writes that no one survived. One by one, the pharaoh's assassins drowned. In absolute silence, the revenge was complete. Or so she believed. After the massacre, Nitocris reportedly returned to the palace and took her own life. Some versions say she threw herself into a chamber filled with burning embers. Others claim she sealed herself inside a room filled with poisonous smoke. But all accounts agree on one thing: she did not allow anyone to touch her body. There was no traditional mummification, no public funeral, no temple built in her honor. And in ancient Egypt, this was deeply abnormal. Without mummification, there is no afterlife. Without ritual, the soul cannot move on. It remains trapped, condemned to wander. That's when the reports began. Shortly after her death, priests tasked with reorganizing the royal records began to fall ill. Papyri vanished. Inscriptions were erased in strange ways. Names were scratched out, as if someone or something did not want to be remembered. Workers claimed they heard footsteps in empty corridors, whispers coming from the walls, and the constant sound of water, even far from the river. One scribe reportedly went mad after repeatedly dreaming of a woman wrapped in wet linen, her face hidden, begging for her name to be preserved. He woke up screaming and died days later. That was when the decision was made. The name Nitocris had to be removed, not as punishment, but as containment, because, according to the priests, as long as her name was spoken, her fury would remain alive. Centuries later, when Greek historians began studying Egypt, the name resurfaced, and with it, new incidents. Herodotus himself reported unexplained difficulties during his research. Translators who quit without explanation. Guides who refused to speak about certain queens. In modern excavations, archaeologists have reported flooded chambers with no logical cause, tools rusting overnight, and inscriptions that seemed to have been altered, as if someone were rewriting history once again, and perhaps still is. The true curse of Nitocris is not in the water that drowned her enemies, not in the underground hall, not even in the perfect act of revenge. It lies in what came after. The Egyptians believed the greatest punishment was not death, but erasure. Having your name removed, your image destroyed, your story cut short. But Nitocris was condemned to something even worse. She was remembered incompletely. Her name never fully disappeared. It echoed in fragments, in torn texts, in contradictory accounts, and according to ancient belief, that creates an unstable spirit, a soul that finds no judgment, no rest, no oblivion. The priests believed Nitocris had become something more than a vengeful spirit, a presence bound to water, darkness, and memory. They said her fury doesn't manifest as clear apparitions, but as events, unexplained floods, destroyed archives, people who come too close to the truth and simply give up. Some modern scholars have reported recurring dreams after researching her name. Always the same scene. A dark hall, water slowly rising, and a woman standing still, watching, without speaking. There are no screams, no chase, only the overwhelming feeling that something has been awakened. And then comes the question no one can answer. What if Nitocris's curse isn't against those who betrayed her, but against those who tried to decide who she was? Perhaps this is the real punishment. Anyone who tries to control her, in life or in history, ends up losing control. To this day, no confirmed tomb of Nitocris has ever been found. No mummy, no monument. The most feared queen of ancient Egypt remains without a body, but not without a presence. Her name still divides historians. Her existence is still questioned, and her story remains wrapped in silence. Maybe Nitocris was only a legend, a moral warning, or a translation error. Or maybe she was so powerful, so dangerous, that Egypt itself chose to bury her outside of death, because some stories were never meant to be complete. Some names do not want to be spoken, and some queens never stopped ruling. And now that you've heard this story, it's part of your memory too. If you believe some stories were erased for a reason, leave a like. If you think the past is still watching those who investigate it, subscribe to the channel. And if you know another legend, curse, or ancient secret that was never meant to be forgotten, tell us in the comments. But be careful, because some stories don't like to be remembered. This was Urban Secrets, and not every mystery wants to be solved.